Elden Ring is often praised for its huge weapon variety, allowing all sorts of possible builds and combinations. But what if, every time you defeat an enemy of any kind, you had to throw the weapon you used away and find another one? Are there actually enough decent weapons in the game? Also, it's an old Remembrances run, so expect a lot of weapons. And the rules are on screen, but there's like way too many of them to read them all. The Vagabond starts with both a longsword, a shield and a halberd, so we choose it. And we can take a greatsword and a flail right after we spawn. Since the flail does bit damage, we can use it to beat down a big dragon, meaning that we'll have to throw it away, but it sucks anyway, so it's okay. We can now buy a bunch of weapons at the Twin Maidens, but in this game you can't buy unlimited amounts of them, so we'll have to find them around. Also, we can't really farm enemies for weapons, since every time we kill any one of them, we consume one weapon we already have, so it's never worth it. But this isn't just a run where we try to kill as few enemies as possible. Who would want to watch that? So, if we want to sacrifice a weapon to get an advantage, we should probably do it. So we go to Liurnia, where in a cave we can fight a boss that will allow us to buy unlimited smithing stones 1 and 2. Because yes, we'll have to upgrade every single weapon we use, so we'll probably end up suffering early with unupgraded weapons, and suffering late because we'll have no runes to level up like ever. But that's kind of the point of the channel, so you can subscribe to see more. Dagger gone, we buy an Estoc from a merchant, and we can go for the Red Wolf. Why the wolf now? Good question. We use the greatsword here, because if we hold it up high in the air, we look a lot bigger and the wolf gets scared, so it's effective. But like, let's actually get to the fun and weird weapons and tactics. That's the reason why I spent more than an hour of my and chat's time trying to make Radahn fall off a cliff. Well, also because my character was the Joker, so I wanted to make a bit about it. Why did I make the Joker? Was it just for that? Honestly, I don't even remember. I recorded this like a month ago, but I said I'm that Joker baby like 50 times. Also, either they patched it or I'm bad, but now we are stuck with the Joker and we have to actually think about a strategy. Just outside the Shaded Castle we can find Maelai Mare, whose name I'm pretty sure is a This Nuts joke, and if we manage to beat them we can get the Unspur Rapier. It's not the easiest fight in the world, mainly because there's a golem in the same arena and if we kill it too we have to waste another weapon, but then I realized that I can just walk out and fight in a 1v1. Thousands of hours in Souls games, by the way. I decided to use the Estoc here, because even though it's a good weapon for boss fights, it can basically stunlock any human enemy as long as you have stamina to attack, so it's perfect for this fight. As a rule of thumb, if it's incredibly annoying in PvP, it's probably good against any NPC. We get the Unspur Rapier, that is probably the strongest weapon you didn't know about in the game, since it has a natural Scarlet Rot build-up and it can be infused with any other element. So we put Frost on it and go for Radahn. We summon the boys, because there is no rule saying that a giant pot and a half wolf can't play basketball, and it only takes 6 hits to both freeze and rot him if you're fast enough. Then we just wait for them to beat him up, just like the Joker would do, and if they deal a lot of damage, then it's all good and he goes into phase 2 fast. If not, we can probably rot and freeze him again, so I'd call that a foolproof plan. And I'd like to mention that our defenses and level are so low that basically everything kills us in one hit. Then stab him in the shins a couple more times and it should be enough. So we can't use the Unspur Rapier anymore, but killing him without upgrading the weapon saves us a lot of runes. Also, like, use the rapier, it's beyond broken. Maybe not in PvP, I won't take any blame for that. We beat him with the strongest weapon of all, the power of friendship, aided by something that definitely goes against the Geneva Convention. Renala is next, and this fight can look really scary for this run, since there are a bunch of enemies that we have to defeat and 2 phases. You would think that in phase 2 we need to kill 3 scholars for every damage cycle on the boss, but that's actually not needed. If we just hit the scholars with any attack from any weapon, they will break the spell, even if they're still alive, so we aren't actually defeating them, and thus we don't have to use a weapon for each. I mean, now that I think about it, it's kind of making up the rules and then breaking them, but this is already recorded, so I'd say it's fine. I brought an unupgraded weapon for Renala, but we still need to be careful, because if for any reason we hit and kill one of the scholars crawling around, we have to throw it away, and there's probably an American school joke there, but I don't want to do it. For phase 2 we have another longsword, but this one is at +6, because she can be really dangerous if we give her too much time. Up until she drops to half HP, it's not a problem. It's just a normal fight while we are kind of underleveled, but then she will start to summon phantoms. We can't fight them, since they would require a weapon for each, but thankfully with this damage and HP we couldn't have fought them either way, so we just have to run until they despawn and we have an opening. And if you're wondering why I brought both longswords, it's because I'm considering every phase in a boss fight as a single enemy, so 2 phases means 2 weapons we have to waste. Yes, even for Malenia or Rykard. We wanted to beat Renala early, because with so many weapons we'll have to switch between, we need to be able to respec, but it's not the time to do it yet, so we can get a couple more weapons and then try to enter the capital, since we have 2 great runes now. From now on we are basically forced to upgrade weapons, else it's way too hard, but we can circumvent this a bit by using Frost or Bleed infusions, since they deal damage based on the opponent's max HP, and upgraded or not, the build up stays almost the same. I struggled with the Orsi, probably because we're underleveled and the right path was definitely through the Mimic Tier and Friends, that's also like where we find the Bleed infusion, but I definitely talked too much while this fight was on to cut to me doing something else, so you know we are entering the capital in a moment. And I am aware that we can easily take them out with Rot, but there are so few weapons that deal Rot that I think it's better to keep them for the harder fights. Now that we are inside, we can get Starfist and use the Scimitar to easily take out Peacefree. Fast weapons work well here. Even if our damage is very bad, it's not that big of a deal. We have a lot of openings and I feel like the attacks are all well telegraphed and easy to dodge. And I am probably editing it so that it's only me getting hit, because else it feels like boasting. Morgoth would be next, but I decided to go down in the hole left by Radahn. Why do this now and not before entering the capital? Because I'm that Joker, baby! It actually has no advantage. None at all. The Mimic is really easy since we are underleveled, and we can just use a shield to take it out, if we are able to do it before the hit death of the universe, that is. Next, I went for Loretta. No, I didn't plan this run very well, where we can use the basic Dragon Shield. We got it from the Draconic 3 Sentinel before the capital, and it does split lightning and strike damage, but it's really heavy and honestly really good. I almost felt bad seeing how well it was working, like I was wasting a decent weapon. And then I remembered how the shield only run went. We simp a bit, and then we head for the Poisonest of the Poisonous Swamps, not to fight Astel yet, but because we can get the Scorpion Stinger, a weapon that deals Rot build up. Then we get another Hither Shield, beat up an invasion, and buy the Shackle. Why all of this for the Shackle? Because I died the 10 previous tries and was losing my mind. Also, Patches doesn't die, so it doesn't count as a used weapon, but even if it did, we could have just used a shield. Now we have to fight the Omen King, but with the Shackle we can just pin him down and stab him a bunch until he starts rotting. Then we have a nice break while we stall, where we can talk about our feelings or the latest sport results, like this guy's Toast's team qualifying for Valorant NA Challengers. Then we can pin him down again and rot again. Here we have a super cool technical detail of the game. He cannot transition to phase 2 from damage over time, so the second rot will drop him to less than half HP, he will just keep walking around aimlessly. The moment we hit him with the knife, he will transition, but his animation is very long, so we can get a bunch of free hits in. Then we just have to keep up the pressure, dodge a couple of attacks, and build some balls of steel, JoJo reference, to deal damage in every opening we have. Since after every rot his resistance will increase, it will take a lot of hits to trigger it for the third time, but then we can stall him out like the best fighting game players. Stinger gone, but being able to win using only one weapon and no upgrades is really good, because maybe I didn't mention it, but if we use 2 weapons to damage an enemy and defeat it, we have to throw both away, so that we can't bring someone to 1 HP and finish them off with the other weapon, having to only throw away the latter. I mean, I can't decide the rules of a challenge and then get out on a technicality. Also, here I realized that I can't mention every weapon I get because we are like not even a third of the way there weapon-wise. So after a trip to Stormveil Castle, since now Margit disappeared, we can go to the Frozen Lands, where I decided to use the Urumi to beat the Invader. It isn't a mandatory fight, but it drops Rivers of Blood, one of the best weapons in the game, and the Urumi is basically useless if not for invaders and the like. If you're wondering how cool it would be if someone made a whip-only challenge run, well then what a coincidence, my friendly Strawman, I made one. For the giant we have the spiked Chestus with Frost, and we just spam double attacks on his ankle until it freezes, bleeds and or dies. With the Chestus, this technically becomes a heavyweight boxing match, since there isn't an upper weight limit. Well, he has a shield, we have spikes on our gloves, for half the fight he rips one of his legs off, but these are all things that would improve the average boxing match. The giant falls by technical KO, also called being frozen to death, and we have to fight Commander Niall, and this section is the beginning of me actually turning into the Joker. Obviously there are 3 enemies in the arena, so this would be 3 weapons we have to commit, but if we bring the commander to half HP, he will unsummon the 2 knights, meaning we can do it with just 1 weapon. And so, since I even did it in the previous video in a first try, so I thought it would have been easy, I spent the next hour being bodied and losing sanity by the minute. Yeah, that's balanced. I'm going to become the Joker. I came to the conclusion that it's not worth it, and I used the Great Sword to take out the first knight, then the Dragon Greatclaw for the shield one, and its on against Niall with a Bleed Battle Axe. Obviously all these while switching equipment mid-fight. And then I outright stomped Niall, making me look even dumber for losing the previous hour. Keep the expectations low, I say. 3 weapons gone is a steep cost, but the fight is mandatory, so we have to suck it up. Then we can go in the Secret Lands for no specific reason, since my next step was asking Melina how she thinks this video is going. It's fire. And then we have to fight the Godskin duo. I talked at length about this fight with chat, since there is more than one of them, but they all contribute to the same big health bar. But since the fight is already insane enough for our level and equipment, we decided that since it's a boss with a single health bar, it's only 1 weapon. I was editing the video and watching my tries with the Torch of Saint Trina that does sleep build up, wondering how I was even able to beat them playing this poorly, like I wasn't even getting close. And then I remembered that I got the Carrion Retaliation from Pedia, that allows us to parry spells and retaliate with these magic swords. If it sounds like the most boring fight of all time, then you would be correct. But we need so many weapon arts, since their damage is fixed and doesn't scale with the weapon level or with our level, that by the end of the fight we are going to have no more heals or focus, and we'll need to clutch while they do the most annoying attacks known to Tarnished. Just like this. Then we had to face the first major wall of the run, and unfortunately we did it while driving a car at full speed, meaning that I died a lot. Every time we want to try out a new weapon, we have to upgrade it a bunch, and it costs a lot of runes that we basically don't have, meaning we have to start committing the good ones. Side note, we don't throw away the other weapons, we can still use them later if we didn't actually use them in the fight where we win. This time, it's the Starscourge Greatswords, the ones we get by trading Radahn's Great Rune. They are paired weapons, so they still count as one in case you're wondering, but we start to feel the lack of levels in that we can't actually wield the weapons, and instead we have to use the Physic Flask to increase our stats, meaning that from the moment the fight begins, we only have 3 minutes to win or we are dead in the water. I mean, I play insanely aggressive anyway, and that's why I die most of the time, but at least now chat can't blame me. We are now at the point where every time we kill a boss we have to commit close to 100k runes just to upgrade the next weapon, so our level progression is going to get worse, if anything. I sometimes forget that my character is the Joker. We fight Gideon with a pointy stick, the weapon used since the beginning of time to keep away creepy guys, and here it makes it so he can basically never cast. Also, someone was saying that this weapon is too good to be wasted on Gideon, and that might be true, but I hated it so much in the Maliketh fight that I wanted to get rid of it. Least emotional streamer, by the way. L plus ratio plus you are not the all-knowing, plus your Gideon, plus your Sir, so you're a noble, so... cringe. We then have to fight Joseph Joestar after part 6 edition, and we deal so little damage that the yellow bar doesn't even show up. Thankfully, this fight can be won with a flowchart. If he's swinging his axe, we dodge to the side and then we poke him. If he dashes away, we follow and jump attack over the stomp. If anything else happens, run away or spam attacks, your choice. If you leave a choice, I guess it's a bad flowchart, but I have an even better one for phase 2. If there is an opening, you have to hit. If there isn't one, dodge the attacks. If he's still alive, go back to the first point. If he's not, then say Ari Ari, arrivederci. Okay, maybe I'm not that good with flowcharts, but at least I'm funny. Okay, got it, but maybe I'm good at video games? We can then fight the Lone Godskin Noble, and I know I usually glance over these fights, since they are pretty early in the game and not that interesting at this point in a normal run, but we can't afford to waste runes here, so we just have to fight with the weapon as low of an upgrade as possible. Also, I'm not doing the shield spell parry thing again. Then it's Rykard's time, but since it's a two-phase boss fight we are going to need two weapons, so we can't just use the Serpent Hunter. Instead, we first go and get the whip, and we use it for the Oslo whip, that has innate bleed build-up. Absolutely unnecessary by the way, but now with a Frost Infusion we can easily get phase 1 done with. And then we whip out the Serpent Hunter, since for once I can actually use the intended weapon for this fight. Honestly, harder than I remembered it to be, but that was like 8 months ago. Looks good at least. Then, since we already burned the tree and basically the whole place, we have two Stormhawk axes, the weapons wielded by Nepheli, and we can go against Godric. And all I said about the early game fights still being hard, I think doesn't really apply here. Like, this is pressing the weapon art once. Then we have to do the shrimp, and I went for the Great Stars since they kind of look like Astel, so they must be good. Also, I got hit by both grab attacks here, but still made it through. Then I tried Godfrey's axe against Placidus' axe, but like it sucks, so I used it against the Elk instead, that this time didn't fall through the floor. Then I had the worst 10 minutes of my life in Elden Ring, where I tried to take down the bird with a bow and I got constantly harassed by every enemy in the area, including the bird, just to get Death Poker, since someone in chat said it basically deletes Placidus' axe. It doesn't basically delete Placidus' axe, in case you're wondering, but I still spend another few very long tries resetting the freeze with a torch. After deciding it isn't worth it, I then used a mace, only to die and waste a bunch more time. Just before losing my mind, I committed the Pike and the Black Flame Tornado, that I wanted to leave for the Elden Beast, but I guess we are here now. Because yes, just to make things harder, I decided that every catalyst, spell or weapon art can only be used once, if we actually use it to deal damage and not just for the infusion. And like this is the damage with an unupgraded Pike, the Tornado absolutely deletes huge bosses like Placidus' axe and the fish. And we still had a pretty clutch moment at the end that I was sure would have made me go insane if I died. Okay, so I think it's this plus one more. We risk it all. Fire. Never a doubt. Easy. First try. We have to reach the Helix Tree, so we avoid killing enemies along the way. And then it's time to fight Loretta. I brought the Star Fists, but I think I basically summed up how this goes during the fight. I mean, there are a lot of things very strong against Loretta. But do you actually need something very strong against Loretta? Then I realized that to reach Fia and Fortisax we have to fight the gargoyles, and like no shot I fight them while committing two weapons, so instead I went down in the capital to fight Sewermog. Yes, I got lost getting there, obviously. I used this axe that I don't even remember how it's called, but we don't need to spend too much time here, since it's the same fight as Bleed Moog later on, and we then have to fight Fia's buddies. I left them for almost last, because we have to sacrifice 5 weapons here. Prophecies, then Chestus, then Flail, Talonclaws and Halberd. Also, it was a grueling, super long fight, but who cares, let's fight Fortisax. This is basically the worst Monster Hunter fight of all time. We take the smallest knife we can find and stab the guy on the ankle for like 5 minutes. Most attacks will straight up miss us, but we have to walk away from the occasional lightning. I know that fighting him by focusing his head is much cooler, but let me get away with the lame strat on this one, since the next fights are all really cool and really hard. Okay, I lied. We first have to kill 2 Crystallians with the worst weapons we have for some Sombra Stones, but then for some reason I decided to kill the Lord of Blood with the Kamehameha. So let me just fast forward a bit. How many weapons did I use here? Why? And here we are, ready for an exciting fight. And it's over. Now we have to fight the 2 strongest bosses in the game, Malenia and the Fish, and both have 2 phases, so we are going to need 1 weapon for each phase. We go to Malenia first, else you see the final boss and click away from the video, but we held on some very good weapons for the hardest fight in the game. The first one is the Nagakiba, that you might have noticed is comically long, because, get it twisted, sometimes size does matter, and in this case it allows us to hit and often stagger her while she dashes around us. Plus we have some poke potential, meaning we can hit her from far away enough so that we can dodge her following attack, that only starts after she gets closer. As you can see, I'm basically naked, and that's because we want to be in fast roll, since it allows us to fully dodge the waterfowl dance even from melee range. And we have some frost pots, since they one-hit freeze her and she takes some damage on the spot and increase damage for a minute. We are fighting here with our feet on the floor. That is kind of an odd approach for me, since I really prefer jumping attacks. But this is just more efficient and it only requires 1 sword. The phase changes and we can't use the Nagakiba anymore, so now I went for the double katana approach, that allows us to jump attack, since using both of them at the same time deals double damage and is just as fast. The most experienced among you probably noticed that I'm in mid-roll though, and that's because I messed up this try. I was supposed to get rid of the mask while switching weapons, since that puts me barely in fast roll, but I didn't do it and now we are in much greater danger, since switching out equipment in this phase is very risky. She's much more aggressive and will constantly run towards us. Still, the damage we deal is great, since after every jump attack we can follow up with a double swing, and it's even better if you consider that we aren't even at level 100. It's still Malenia, so it's always really dangerous. And remember, if you want to do this fight like me, that having the Rivers of Blood in the right hand means we have the Corpse Piler weapon art, that even though it was nerfed, is still very strong. And if I usually say that you shouldn't do these challenges since it's just a pain in bite form, this one is actually fun. I mean, still painful, but it has some rewards. She decides to basically give us the win at the end, and we can finish this out with Radagon and the Fish. We have a weapon I think most of you were waiting for, but it also shows us that sometimes being too big is a problem, since this hammer is so huge we can't even see Radagon most of the time. Not that we need to. And then we went for another fan favorite, the Blasphemous Blade, that heals for way too much. We actually ran out of focus after a while, so I had to finish it off with a mace. But 52 weapons later, I'll say that you can beat Elden Ring by using every weapon once. Also, I for sure forgot to count a weapon at some point, so it's probably like 53.